How's it going, guys? Welcome to another little tutorial here. This one, what I want to talk to you about is setting up reference imagery for your 3D models. So for example, you're working in a game studio and you're the 3D modeler, but there's actually a concept artist or a designer who's actually designing the characters, designing the props, designing the environments that you are then going to use as a basis to create from. So they're going to provide you with reference imagery that you're going to use to help scale your models correctly and make sure you have all the right details in. As part of your assignment, you have to be both the concept artist and the modeler. You have to create the designs, draw them out, and then go ahead and model them. So we're going to take a little look at that reference process. What I've got here is a project that you might have seen before. This is the Lego Man project. There is a full tutorial series on how to create this elsewhere on the game assets playlist here. So if you haven't checked that out, you might want to go have a look at it. But what I'm going to focus on in this video is specifically about reference imagery and how we set it up in 3D Studio Max. I'm going to split this into two parts, and in part two we're going to go into Photoshop and I'm going to show you basics of how to actually draw some reference imagery. So where do we start? Okay, so you can see I've got this little Lego figure here and he's completely made already. And we've got just two simple planes set up here, and you can see on them we've got a side view and a front view of a Lego man. So if I go into my documents folder here, you'll see that I actually have a lot of just JPEG images, or PNG images, sorry. And they are square image files, and I've got the front view, I've got the side view, and I've also got little breakdowns of individual parts of the model as well, like the arm and the hand and things like that. Separately, what I also have, and I always recommend that you do, is get some reference imagery just of the object you're trying to create, so that while you're working off the reference imagery, you can see an example of it in real life where possible. Won't always be possible if you're making a sci-fi vehicle or whatever, but even in that case, have pictures of other vehicles to see what the materials are, to see how details should look and what kind of sizes things are. So reference imagery goes hand in hand with existing actual imagery of the photo, the object you're trying to create. So this little Lego man, this was given to me from one of the other teachers. I don't know where it came from before that, so apologies if you're watching that and recognize that this is your image file. Let me know in the comments down below if that's the case. But as you can see, we've got a front and a side. Commonly, what we'll also have if we're doing props is we might have the top view as well, maybe the bottom view if it's a complicated vehicle. Just depends on the complexity of your object. You might have different things. So first of all, what we're going to do, we're going to set this up in 3D Studio Max. So how we're going to do that, we are going to just create a plane. And because we're just going to put one image on it, it only needs to have one length segment, one height segment. So you'll see there the subdivisions, we don't need those. We'll keep that down at 1, 1. What is important though is that this plane is completely square. So the size itself doesn't really matter. We can scale our final object afterwards. As long as the plane itself is square and we model from that. Now, in saying that, if we do rescale this Lego man afterwards, if we do rescale the Lego man after we've done modeling it, it won't match a reference anymore. So you might want to get it correct. But the main thing is we get a square plane that our image can go on. And if I bring you back, oh, I've closed it, typical. If I bring you back to where we were looking there, where was that file folder at? If I bring you back, these are all square files as well, 1024 by 1024. And that will be important to help line up the reference images better. So we've got this. What we want to do is rotate it 90 degrees. So I will turn on my angle snaps just to make it a bit easier to rotate. And just rotate this by 90 so that it is vertical. And I can really set it anywhere I want. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is that these two planes are both lined up at the same height off the ground. So what I'm going to do, I've got two reference images I'm just going to move this over here out of the way a little bit. And I'm going to hold shift and just create a duplicate of it. Slide it over and rotate this one also 90 degrees. So we've got kind of a left view and a front view. And we'll see they're both at the same height. They don't need to be touching, that's totally fine. But as long as their top and bottoms are the same height, that's what we're looking for. So I can actually move this one back a wee bit. Move this one back a wee bit. We can have a gap between them, that's totally fine. And our model itself will go somewhere in the middle down here. But I'll show you that in a second. Now what we want to do is we want to show that reference imagery in Max so that we can work off it. So what I want to do is press M to open my material window. And you'll see I've got a couple of materials pre-made here. Again, we want to be working in the compact material editor. If your material editor doesn't look like this, hit the mode button on the top left and make sure it says compact. You might open the slate editor, I might default to that instead. So make sure it's the compact material editor. What we want to do is choose one of these blank materials. So these are all used. I think this one's used as well, is it? This one's okay. I've renamed this one as Lego character for whatever reason. But I'll just override it here. I'm just going to take this, presume it's a blank material, and I'll call it ref front. And what I want to do is I want to go down here where it says diffuse. And this is normally a solid color. It's kind of a grayish color. But I want to hit this little box beside it, little square gray button. Click that. It'll take a second or two to load up. And then when this opens up, we want to choose bitmap, the second option here. And bitmap allows us to put our own file in there. So where did I save these to now? I think that's where I want to go to. So that's my front view. And you'll see that that's then stretched over a little sphere here. That's what we want. And now I'm going to drag that onto this surface. Now, this might not be visible right away. If it's not visible and you see a plain grey plane still, click this little button here, show shaded material in viewport, little sort of blue circle. Click that. There we see if we toggle that on and off what actually happens. So that's our first one set up. We literally just want to repeat that process for the other one. So we'll go to this blank material. And I can't remember what I called this, but we'll call it ref side. And again, we come down to diffuse. We'll click on the little grey button beside it. We choose bitmap from the list. All these other things are different types of maps and materials that we can make. The only one we're interested in right now is bitmap. And we'll choose our side view. And drag that on top. And now this one didn't go default, so we'll hit this little button. There we go. And that's our reference setup. And what we want to do then is, let me see, what way have I organized this? If I hit F on my keyboard, there we go. If I hit F, we'll see we're in the front view. And there's our front plane, and we can see the side plane. Obviously we can't see it. But what I can do now is I can start modeling. If I go into perspective mode and just try to roughly place a box here, we'll make the torso first of all. Get something that seems roughly the right size. Now if I go to my front viewport, just grab that little box, I'll just change the color of it so you can see it easier. Go to the move tool. And if I bring this up here, now I will start modeling everything here. I will convert you to an editable poly. I'm not going to model the whole thing, it's just to demonstrate how this works. If I now draw a box, and you can't really see it too well either because it's grayed out. But if I start moving these polygons to line up with the box, and now a useful little tip. What's the control? Yes, Alt X will actually make your object transparent or semi-transparent. So you can see it's going to a kind of a half see-through grey box here. That's Alt and X on your keyboard. And what that'll do is allow us to see what's underneath if we need to scale certain bits down or do whatever. There we go. So that's it on the front view. And I'll come out of my polygon mode here. And if I hit, let me see, L should work, left view. Yep. So again, ignore the old Lego man that we have here. What we want to do now is move this one into position. And we've still got Alt X pressed, so it's still semi-transparent. I'll move the front there, we'll grab these polygons and we'll move it back. There we go. So now if I go to my perspective view, you will see that we have our first piece. I hit Alt X again just to show it completely. And of course we could model this further, chamfer the edges, put more detail on it, whatever. But we're not going to do that here. If you want to check out the Lego video itself, we'll go more into the modeling process. This one just to show you the reference imagery process, setting up those reference images. Now, what you may have is if you have a top view, and how you would do that is, again, you would create a duplicate. You would rotate that 90 degrees. Again, with your little angle snaps to help out there. And just lower that down. And again, we would create another material with that top view and just drag it and drop. And now what might happen as well is you might need to rotate it maybe in the other axis that way or that way, just so it lines up correctly. But that's how we set up a reference imagery. Actually quite simple, but really, really useful. It helps us get our proportions correct on our object, especially if it is an existing real world object that has specific size we need to meet. Helps consistency across all your characters or all your props. If you have one artist doing all the props, it'll help create consistency with the size and the design of them, things like that. And as I say, for your assignment, you have to create reference imagery for the props and the 3D models that you're going to make. So that's how we set it up in 3D Studio Max. We have square PNG files and we just drag them in onto new materials and then we just model around them. Is there anything else I want to point out? I think that's everything. Obviously we just we model in our front and side orthographic views as opposed to perspective. Perspective can be used to give us a kind of a general look around to see how it's all looking, but mainly we'll be modeling in these kind of views, which is a bit awkward for a lot of people who just model in perspective, but you do get used to it. But yeah, we're going to leave it there for this video, and in part 2 we're going to go over to Photoshop where I'll show you how to actually set up and create your own reference images. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below or send me an email, whatever the story is, and I'll see you for part 2. Thank you very much.